Morning. If you're into old weapons, historic weapons, here's my quick guide on sword care. Firstly, all swords are made of spring steel, which is excellent from the point of view of wear and tear, helping you assassinate your kuffar enemies. It must, of course, be cleaned and oiled on a regular basis. You can imagine, especially in European climates, like northern European climates, where it's particularly damp, especially in England and Germany, what have you, very quickly you will find it will start rusting and decaying if you don't do this. Of course, in the olden days, only a rich knight, a rich person would have a sword by his side, because they're very expensive to make. The normal weaponry for a lowly serf, an ordinary Englishman or ordinary Arab or what have you, would be a pike or a spear. So you've really got to be careful. I mean, even on this example here, I can see a couple of little rust marks trying to take hold, but you can use any WD-40 or any engine oil or what have you, any normal lubricants. Of course, if you're an infidel Muslim barbarian, you've really got to look after these tools of your trade, otherwise you will fail to behead the people on a massive scale, as the Prophet did. It's, as many of you will know, he wasn't a peaceful individual one little bit. He was a particularly nasty, probably psychopathic pervert. Yes, so obviously this sword, when I got it, was only slightly sharp, so I did sharpen it. It's due for a slight revamp, I think. You can use a sharpening stone as such, lightly oiled. I always seem to get better results, to be honest, keeping a consistent angle, 45 degrees, with a file. And if you keep the file still and then draw the blade across it, you'll get very good results. I usually finish off with a piece of 400 grade emery cloth, just to put the final touch to it. So this hasn't been cleaned for months, but I have tested it on melons and such like, and it is quite an effective piece of work. But it is a direct copy of Edward, Prince of Wales' sword from the 1200 and whatever, when we were fighting France, stealing parts of France. So obviously, if you're a Christian crusader or a Muslim barbarian back in the 7th century, you really need a good sword to be able to execute the hundreds of people at all the villages he conquered. I mean, it actually says at the first village, Banu Qurayza, it says in the Quran, he definitely killed, and his followers killed 600 to 900 civilians, including any boys who had pubic hair. They looked, yes, they looked. So as you see, these older boys were beheaded with implements like this, although of course a dagger, they would all be tied up and restrained, so a dagger around the throat did the job quite efficiently. Of course, the Islamic Prophet had trenches pre-dug, so it was a pre-planned massacre. There was no accident in this, or an accident of war. It was planned right from his first vision. Yes, his first visions when he set up the religion were actually largely ignored and laughed at by everybody. Of course, his area near Medina, he was surrounded with more enterprising Jews and Christians who could read and write, most of them, and who did great business together. But of course, Muhammad and his gang were total illiterates. They were illiterate thug barbarians who really needed to keep their sword in tip-top condition to oppress the local population, to massacre thousands of people. In his 12 years in power, he did, historians say, killed between 3,500 and 5,000 people in that small neck of the woods. This would be the sort of sword that was used towards the end of the Crusade period to kick their arses out of Spain and kick their arses out of Sicily, which they did occupy. Of course, a lot of people don't know, but most of Islam's wealth was built on stealing people's children. Yes, and taking them and their boys, taking them as slaves and selling them. In the case of young boys, it would be to all perverts and young girls. Obviously, if the boys got a bit too old for that, they would cut their nuts and dick off and sell them as labour slaves. Yep, they really did this to millions of them. It was only towards the end of the slave trade, when the slaves were being taken to America, when they stopped using implements like this to castrate all these poor Africans and a few Christians. So as I say, always keep your your execution sword well oiled, either with WD-40, thin engine oil, grease, even chain grease will do it. Just rub it along the blade. I need to do this one soon. This is actually, although it looks like alloy, this is actually cast iron, polished cast iron. I was shocked to find. It's got a couple of marks on it. You can also lacquer your sword to keep off the blood and the rust if you're a barbarian type. But if you're just a normal Westerner, obviously you want it to keep it in good condition for display purposes only, as this is useful. Although when I have tried it, I have found I do seem to be quite a natural good aim with this. A few marks on the leather here needs addressing. So if you're a valiant, brave Christian crusader like Mr. Trump, or if you're a barbarian, racist, hateful mass murderer like the Prophet Muhammad, always keep your sword in tip-top condition, ready for immediate massacres. Okay, see you guys.